Have you ever stopped to wonder what secrets lie beneath the sands of Egypt? This land, golden, vast, and seemingly lifeless, was once the heartbeat of empires. Where the desert now reigns, bustling cities once stood. Markets rang with voices, temples echoed with prayers, and stone streets carried the footsteps of pharaohs and priests. But time is patient. And the sands are merciless. For thousands of years, the Sahara has slowly consumed what humanity built. Great cities have vanished. Entire civilizations have crumbled and been forgotten. Not by accident, but by the rhythm of nature and the silent force of history. Wind, water, war, and time all conspired to erase the footprints of glory. Yet not everything is lost. In the 21st century, archaeologists are listening closely to the whispers beneath the dunes. Every grain of sand is a page in a vast, buried book, one still being read. Today, we stand on the edge of discovery. New technologies like satellite imaging, ground-penetrating radar, and underwater scanning are helping us peer through centuries of silence. The desert is beginning to speak. This is a story of resurrection. Of cities once thought mythical now proven real. Of ruins emerging like ghosts from the ground. What was hidden for millennia is reawakening. And with every excavation, every uncovered wall or shattered statue, we get closer to understanding the ancient soul of Egypt. But this journey is more than archaeology. It's about the human desire to remember. To connect with ancestors long gone. To understand how a city dies and how its story lives on. So join us as we travel across Egypt, from shifting sands to submerged ports, from forgotten capitals to underground tombs. This is not the Egypt you see in tourist brochures. This is the Egypt that dreams beneath the dust, waiting to be found. Our journey leads us to the northeast of Egypt, to the once magnificent city of Tanis, a name now whispered only in history books and archaeological dig reports. In its prime, Tanis was a capital of power and religious prestige. Built during the 21st and 22nd dynasties, it was a city of kings. Pharaohs lived and were buried here, priests of Ammonius conducted sacred rites, and artisans sculpted marvels that rivaled the glory of Thebes. For a time, Tanis was Egypt's beating heart, yet today, it lies desolate, a landscape of ruins sprawled across the flat desert. Its temples stand roofless. Its monuments lie shattered, their faces eroded by centuries of wind and neglect. Even its name nearly faded from memory until rediscovered by 19th century explorers. So what happened? The answer, like most ancient tragedies, is both simple and devastating. The Nile shifted its course. This lifeline of Egypt, the source of its fertility and trade, moved away, leaving Tanis isolated and vulnerable. Without water, commerce dwindled. Without commerce, people left. What followed was silence. The city was slowly buried by layers of silt and sand. Forgotten by the world, remembered only by time, and yet, beneath this forgotten dust, something remarkable remained. In the 1930s, French archaeologist Pierre Montet discovered the royal necropolis of Tanis. Inside the tombs were treasures so lavish, they stunned the world: gold masks, ornate jewelry, silver sarcophagi. These discoveries matched, even rivaled, the famous treasures of Tutankhamun. But Tanis never enjoyed the same fame. Why? Perhaps because its tombs had already been disturbed. Perhaps because its story was harder to tell. Yet today, Tanis whispers its story once more. Each unearthed statue, each inscription, speaks of gods, kings, and the everyday lives of people who once called this place home. Walking through its ruins, you can almost hear the distant chants of temple priests, the hammering of stoneworkers, the rustle of linen robes in the wind. Tanis reminds us that cities do not simply disappear, they wait. Beneath dust. Beneath silence. For someone to remember. For centuries, it was the stuff of legend, a city spoken of in hushed tones, its existence debated by scholars and dismissed as myth. Known to the ancient Egyptians as Thonis, and to the Greeks as Heracleion, it was said to have been a thriving port city, the gateway to Egypt for traders from across the Mediterranean. But then, it vanished, no trace, no ruins, no maps. It disappeared beneath the sea, seemingly erased from time, until the year 2000. That's when underwater archaeologist Frank Gaudio and his team, scanning the seabed off the coast of Alexandria, stumbled upon something extraordinary. Massive stone blocks. Inscriptions. Sphinxes. Statues of pharaohs and queens. Temples. Even entire ships remarkably preserved under layers of sediment and saltwater. Heracleion was real. And it was spectacular. 1200 years ago, a combination of earthquakes, rising sea levels, and liquefaction of the Nile Delta soil caused the city to collapse and sink. Buildings crumbled. Streets disappeared beneath waves. Over time, Heracleion was buried in a watery grave and the world forgot, but what they found beneath the Mediterranean is nothing short of breathtaking. Enormous statues of the god Happy, intact inscriptions of pharaohs, ceremonial items still bearing golden inlays, all resting in silence for over a millennium. Divers have uncovered more than 60 shipwrecks, hundreds of anchors, and evidence of massive religious festivals dedicated to the god Ammonius. Heracleion wasn't just a trade port. It was a spiritual center, a royal harbor, a symbol of Egypt's global reach. What's most haunting is how well the sea has preserved it. Unlike cities lost to desert sands, Heracleion slumbers beneath the waves, almost untouched. The slow-motion collapse of its civilization now offers us a frozen moment in time, and the story it tells is more than Egyptian. It's universal. Heracleion was a place of convergence where Greek, Egyptian, and Phoenician cultures met. It's proof that ancient cities were not isolated kingdoms, but dynamic, multicultural hubs, pulsing with life. What else lies hidden beneath the sea? Heracleion reminds us, even myths can be real. In the heart of Egypt's desert, where the horizon melts into dust, lies the skeletal remains of a city that was unlike any other in Egyptian history. A place born of rebellion, devotion, and a singular vision. This was Amarna, the city of the heretic king. In the 14th century BCE, Pharaoh Akhenaten broke with thousands of years of tradition. He rejected Egypt's powerful pantheon and proclaimed a new, singular deity, Aten, the sun disk. In an act both political and spiritual, Akhenaten abandoned the ancient capitals of Thebes and Memphis and built an entirely new city from the ground up, a city devoted to his god. He called it Akhetaten, horizon of the Aten. Amarna rose almost overnight. Palaces, temples, residential blocks, workshops all aligned to follow the path of the sun. The art of the time shifted too. Gone were the stiff, idealized forms of past dynasties. In their place emerged more fluid, human expressions, scenes of the royal family kissing their children, of the sun's rays ending in delicate hands touching the foreheads of the faithful. Akhenaten ruled here with Queen Nefertiti, whose beauty and influence have echoed through millennia. Together, they envisioned a new Egypt, illuminated by divine light, but revolutions rarely last. After less than 2 decades, Akhenaten died. His religious reforms were swiftly reversed. The priests of Ammonius regained power. His city was abandoned, his name removed from monuments, his legacy nearly erased. The next pharaoh, a boy named Tutankhaten, would change his name to Tutankhamun, restoring the old gods. Amarna faded into obscurity, a footnote in Egypt's long story, yet today, its ruins whisper of ambition, idealism, and a moment when one man tried to rewrite the divine order. Excavations reveal streets, workshops, and homes still bearing traces of daily life: clay tablets, paint pigments, broken statues of the royal family. Amarna was more than an experiment. It was a vision etched into stone, however briefly. A monument to the possibility of change and the cost of challenging tradition. Just as Heracleion dazzled the ancient world with its opulence, its twin city Thonis matched it in influence and intrigue. In fact, many historians now believe they may have been one and the same, two names for a single metropolis that stood as Egypt's mighty portal to the Mediterranean. Long before Alexandria rose in fame, Thonis Heracleion served as the country's international gateway, a vibrant harbor city where cultures, religions, and economies collided. Merchants arrived with amphorae of olive oil, shiploads of timber, and fine Greek wine. Priests performed rituals in towering temples. Scribes inked treaties with faraway lands. This was where East met West, not just in trade, but in spirit. But for over 1,000 years, Thonis vanished beneath the sea, remembered only in passing references by ancient writers. Some scholars even questioned whether it existed at all. That changed with a series of underwater discoveries that redefined our understanding of Egypt's maritime past. Archaeologists recovered more than 60 shipwrecks from the seabed. Some dated as far back as the 6th century BCE, their hulls intact, their cargo untouched. Others bore markings in multiple languages: Egyptian, Greek, Phoenician, revealing the city's cosmopolitan character. Massive stone blocks, steels, and religious statues emerged from the depths, pointing to a complex, thriving urban culture. One of the most astonishing finds? A colossal stele inscribed with decrees from Pharaoh Nectanebo confirming that Thonis was not only real, it had once been a religious capital, as well as a trade hub. What made this city sink? The land beneath Thonis was a fragile patchwork of silt and sand. A combination of natural disasters, earthquakes, rising tides, and soil liquefaction caused the city to collapse gradually into the sea. Its temples cracked. Its streets buckled. And then, silence. Today, divers float silently where crowds once gathered. Their lights illuminate statues of gods once worshipped in temples now draped in seaweed. It's haunting and breathtaking. Thonis reminds us that the sea, like the desert, is a keeper of memory. And when it chooses to return those memories, it does so with stunning clarity. Once hailed as one of the greatest capitals of ancient Egypt, Pi-Ramesses was the pride of a king who called himself a god. Built by Ramses II, Ramses the Great, this city wasn't just a capital, it was a statement. A declaration of power, ambition, and eternal legacy. Located in the northeastern Nile Delta, Pi-Ramesses rose with remarkable speed. At its height, the city boasted enormous temples, sprawling palace complexes, and vast stables that housed thousands of chariot horses. Foreign dignitaries traveled here to pay tribute. Soldiers trained for battles that would be remembered in stone. And Ramses himself ruled from here for decades, stamping his mark across every wall and monument. But today? The city has all but disappeared. The landscape is now rural, peaceful farmlands stretch as far as the eye can see. There's little at first glance to suggest that one of the most magnificent capitals of Egypt once stood here. Unlike Thebes or Memphis, no grand temples dominate the skyline. Instead, you find fragments, shattered stones reused in later buildings, weather-worn statues half buried in fields, and broken hieroglyphs uncovered by farmers' plows. So what happened? The answer lies in the shifting nature of the Nile. Over time, the river's channels moved, and Pi-Ramesses, which had relied on its location as a vital port, suddenly found itself cut off from the waterway that had given it life. Without the Nile, the city could not survive. Its decline was gradual but inevitable, but even in decay, Pi-Ramesses had one last act to play. Later pharaohs, including those of the 22nd dynasty, dismantled the city stone by stone. Temples were torn down, statues hauled away, entire structures relocated to new capitals like Tanis, where these building materials would continue to serve the gods and kings. Today, archaeologists have pieced together Pi-Ramesses' legacy using technology, ancient texts, and remnants scattered across the region. What they've found paints a picture of grandeur beyond imagination, a city that once dominated Egypt's golden age, and in every fragment uncovered, we are reminded, power, no matter how divine, is not immune to the flow of time and water. In the shadow of the Fayum oasis lies a mystery so profound, it baffled ancient travelers and still tantalizes historians today. The Labyrinth of Hawara. Imagine a structure so vast, so complex, that it left even the Greeks speechless. The ancient historian Herodotus, writing in the 5th century BCE, described it in awe. I found it greater than even the pyramids. According to him, this labyrinth had 12 massive courts, over 3,000 chambers, and walls covered in exquisite carvings. Some rooms were above ground. Others plunged deep beneath it, housing tombs of kings and sacred crocodiles. It sounds like fantasy. Yet multiple ancient sources, Herodotus, Strabo, Diodorus, all described it. So where did it go? The labyrinth was believed to have been constructed by Amenemhat III, one of the most powerful pharaohs of the Middle Kingdom. It was located next to his pyramid at Hawara and served not just as a tomb, but as a grand ceremonial and administrative complex, a symbol of centralized power. Today, little remains above ground. Earthquakes, stone robbing, and erosion have flattened its once towering walls. For centuries, many doubted it ever existed, but in recent years, science has begun to catch up with myth. Using ground-penetrating radar and satellite imaging, researchers have identified massive rectilinear foundations beneath the soil at Hawara, precisely where the labyrinth was said to be. The dimensions match ancient descriptions. The complexity stuns even modern engineers. The labyrinth, it seems, was real and may still be intact beneath the sand. Why has it remained buried? Because excavating it poses enormous challenges. The water table is high. The surrounding region is sensitive. And the scale of the structure would require monumental resources to uncover fully. But even in secrecy, the labyrinth speaks. It tells a story of ambition, of an Egypt that wanted to immortalize not just its kings, but its architecture, ideas, and ideology. Perhaps what awed the ancients most was not the size of the labyrinth, but what it represented, the unknowable mind of Egypt, encoded in stone. When we think of pyramids, our minds immediately leap to Giza, the towering tombs of Khufu, Khafre, and Menkaure. But travel just 10 kilometers south, and you enter another world. A quieter one. A forgotten one. This is Abu Sir, the land of the lesser-known pyramids. Here, in this sun-baked necropolis, lie the tombs of the 5th dynasty pharaohs, kings who ruled Egypt during a period of transition, experimentation, and subtle rebellion against tradition. These pyramids are smaller, simpler, and more weathered than their famous cousins at Giza. But within their stones lies a story just as important. The rulers buried at Abu Sir, Sahur, Neferurker, Nasser, and others were not just builders of tombs. They were architects of a spiritual shift. During their reigns, Egypt moved its religious focus from the god Ra to a more complex pantheon of sun deities and celestial forces. Temples began sprouting alongside pyramids. Sun cults flourished. And with them came a new form of sacred writing. The pyramid texts, carved inside the tombs of Abu Sir, are some of the earliest known religious inscriptions, incantations, hymns, and spells meant to guide the pharaoh's soul through the underworld and into the afterlife. These texts later evolved into the famous Book of the Dead, influencing Egyptian spirituality for centuries. Yet Abu Sir's pyramids, over time, crumbled. Built from lower quality stone and with less architectural precision than Giza's marvels, they fell victim to erosion, looting, and neglect. The desert took them back. And modernity, obsessed with grandeur, overlooked their quieter significance. Today, archaeologists are giving Abu Sir the attention it deserves. Excavations reveal sophisticated construction techniques, detailed reliefs, and clues about a society in spiritual and political flux. Even the papyrus archives discovered here, known as the Abu Sir papyri, have provided rare insight into daily life at the royal court, including temple economics. Above ground, Saqqara stuns visitors with its towering step pyramid, Egypt's oldest pyramid and a marvel of early engineering. But what lies beneath this iconic structure is something even more astonishing: an invisible city, a vast, layered necropolis carved deep into the earth, stretching through time and mystery. For thousands of years, Saqqara served as Egypt's sacred burial ground. Pharaohs, nobles, priests, and commoners all found rest here. But only in recent decades have archaeologists begun to truly grasp the scale of what lies beneath: a sprawling, multi-level underground metropolis of tombs, tunnels, shafts, and chapels. Some shafts dive over 30 meters into the earth, deeper than a 10-story building is tall. And within these vertical caverns, perfectly sealed chambers have been discovered, untouched since antiquity. Inside? Mummies wrapped in linen and gold, intricately painted coffins, and scrolls of forgotten prayers. But this is not just a graveyard. It's a meticulously designed city of the dead. Over generations, families expanded burial shafts into elaborate complexes. Temples were built above and below. Passages connected sacred spaces with living quarters for the caretakers of the dead. And throughout, inscriptions tell of rituals, resurrection, and eternal life. What's remarkable is how much remains hidden. Thanks to modern technology, ground-penetrating radar, thermal imaging, and micro-robotic cameras, researchers can now explore without disturbing sacred spaces. They've found hundreds of tombs still sealed, each offering new insight into Egyptian beliefs about death and the afterlife. Recent finds include the tomb of Wadi, a priest from the 5th dynasty, discovered in 2018. His tomb walls are covered with vibrant, perfectly preserved scenes of daily life: fishing, feasting, music, and more, a timeless portrait of a world long gone. And yet, for all we've uncovered, experts believe only a small fraction of Saqqara's underground world has been mapped. Beneath our feet may lie more tombs than we can imagine, waiting, still and silent. Saqqara reminds us, the Egyptians didn't just build toward the sky. They also built downward, into the earth, into eternity, into the unknown. What draws us to the ruins of lost cities? What makes us peer into crumbling corridors, trace faded hieroglyphs, and listen to the wind as if it carries the voices of pharaohs? Perhaps it's because memory is never truly gone, it only waits. Across the sands of Egypt, cities have risen, fallen, and been swallowed whole. They have been forgotten not just by the world, but sometimes even by their own descendants. Yet here we are, thousands of years later, returning. Digging. Listening. Reconstructing stories from broken statues, sunken ships, and buried chambers, and every discovery brings us closer to something more profound than knowledge. It brings us closer to ourselves. Because these cities, though ancient, are not foreign. Their struggles were our struggles, to survive, to build, to dream of immortality. Their failures mirror our own political collapse, natural disasters, the illusion of permanence. And their voices, once silenced by sand and sea, are speaking again louder now, as if they never stopped. With each city we've uncovered, Heracleion, Tanis, Amarna, Pi-Ramesses, and so many more, we aren't just discovering buildings. We're discovering ambition, faith, revolution, innovation. We're rediscovering the human story, told not in one language, but in many. Carved in stone. Painted in tombs. Written in the layout of streets and the curvature of pottery. This journey is not just about Egypt. It's about the eternal return, the cycle of loss and rediscovery that defines civilizations. Cities fall. Stories fade. But the land remembers, and so we keep searching. With satellite eyes, with sonar scans, with sand-covered fingers and beating hearts. We search because we must. Because every stone lifted from the earth is a whisper recovered from time. And each whisper reminds us, what was once lost can live again, in knowledge, in memory, in awe.